science versus bro? You know, like, how do we even define that? Like, what is your approach? Give me your thoughts.
So I do keep up with the science, and sometimes I find it useful. A lot of the times I find it more interesting than useful. More just sort of background knowledge, like, oh, this group compared to this group, like, this group found this. Okay, cool, I'm going to file that up here. I'm not necessarily going to copy the protocol used in the study, because that's not really what a study is trying to provide for people. They're just trying to isolate one variable and find, oh, when we changed the volume, this happened. This group to this group. Or when we did this exercise versus this exercise. Or this group did this type of periodization, this group did this. Oh, the results were pretty much equal, so it probably doesn't matter that much. So I do keep up with the science. I do find it interesting. I rarely see a study that actually changes what I do in the gym, just because I don't put that much weight in one study usually anyway. Occasionally I'll see a meta-analysis or some kind of review or something like that where it will make me think, okay, look, maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll do some lengthened partials. Maybe I'll add in some movements that use a different tempo or something else. I would say bro-based lifting is more intuitive. It's a little bit more raw. It's going more based on your own personal experiences. And so you see a bro in the gym and maybe they're doing something that doesn't have any scientific evidence behind it, but they've seen results from it. Even most guys who train like bros, they're still observant, usually. In fact, often they're more observant than the scientific guys. They're often just looking at different things. A sensation, a feeling, that is still data. And even if you don't write it down, even if you don't measure it, even if you don't manage it, it still matters. Oh, I feel a stretch when I do this, or I feel a nice contraction when I do this, or when I tilt this way, I feel a little bit more here. Or when I use this grip, I feel a burn in this area. But when I use this grip, I feel it more over here. I mean, those are real things, and those things arguably matter more than someone saying, oh, this meta-analysis said you need to do 18 sets, this one said 5 sets, this one said... I mean, those are interesting, but they're really just broad brushstrokes of what the average person might respond to. A lot of them are on beginners, and so I tend to go based on my own experiences and feelings more than I used to, just because even if it's only n equals 1, even if it's just me, it's not a very big sample size, I know that sample size is always going to actually pertain to me because it's me. And so I think if someone is really up in the research and they're reading a whole bunch of literature and they're spending a lot of time on PubMed, I would really encourage people to also learn to go by feel in the gym. If you're really tired, you can do a little bit less. If you feel really good and motivated, you can do a few more sets. It doesn't have to be just 2 sets of this. You can have a range. You can do 2 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 4, 3 to 5. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If you feel like a movement, maybe it has really good EMG activation according to the study, well, that doesn't mean you're going to get good activation. It doesn't even mean that necessarily activation from an EMG is what matters all that much. And so I would say most people definitely keep a training log, because you're going to want to track that over time. If you're not tracking that over time, that's a little bit too much bro for me. I think you want that data, and you want to be able to track that progression and progress. I think you want pretty consistent form. It doesn't necessarily need to be super strict, where you're always moving very robotically. I think that's a decent starting point for beginners, because they maybe don't have the total body awareness to actually move in a way that allows them to get more out of the set and more out of the rep compared to the super strict form. But if someone is an intermediate and their progress is maybe slowed down and they want to add a little bit of oomph to some movements, maybe some shoulder movements, maybe some back movements especially, if they want to add a little bit of grip and rep, as long as you're still controlling that eccentric, I think that might make sense. To me, I just try to look at what is helping you make progress on your lifts. Because ultimately, it's really hard to measure muscle growth anyway. And so you're just trying to pick maybe 2 to 3 movements per movement pattern that you're tracking over time, and you're actively trying to get stronger over time. And having consistent form, which may or may not be strict, I think that is what makes the most sense, regardless of if you're science-y or bro-y. And if you're on the extreme of science-y or bro-y, I think either extreme is probably not a great position to be in. And so if you're on one side, you can probably learn a lot from the other side. So if you're a bro guy, maybe dig into the research a little bit. If you're a sciencey guy, maybe just go in sometimes and shut that off and just crush some weights, and you might find that you get closer to the middle, which is probably the best place to be.
Yeah, I agree with you in some standpoints. For me, it's like I find myself to be a really good mix of both. Like I look at science. When I look at the science of things, it's like at the basis of all we're doing is science is there. Like it has to be. Where we all have some kind of rendition of hypertrophy. However, we kind of like there. That's how there's hypertrophy, and then this is how we translate it or how we apply or and whatnot. For me, but there's also that part of I look at my fitness journey is like what is necessary. Like what is necessary for you to reach your goals? I want to know that do I have to lift this heavy to get this, or do I have to do this? Like, is it this? Is it to the? You know what I mean? To that extent of certain things. So for me, it's like I don't know what's necessary because I've done a lot of everything where it's like go in there, rip and grip, and I've done it, and I got deteriorated vertebrae, got issues and whatnot, so that part is like, so for me my journey is like, okay, I've done all the things that super bros would do, where it's like, I gotta get hip surgery and stuff, I got back problems, yada yada yada, but at the same time I also there's also like that fine line between, I look at sometimes science-based stuff kind of gives, it's almost like I find some people when they get too they dive into it too much, science is they're looking for an easy way. Like science is going to give me the straight and narrow to where I need to go, and I find because when it comes down to it, it's no, I don't think people are like science-based, I'm gonna work really hard. It's like, oh, I only have to work on the negative on this part. All right, cool. This part of the lift I don't really have to worry about too much. The science says that muscle hypertrophy is better in the lengthen more than is the actual contraction. So I'm not even going to worry about the shortened contraction. I'm just worry about this part, or how many sets do I actually have to do in these things. Like for me, it's like, I don't know how many sets are necessary. I think some people are like, how many sets are necessary so I don't have to do as many sets. I don't that's where I kind of see science-based lifters in a sense. I'm not saying all of them are like that, but I find that I agree. There's a good mix of like, we need to have science and we need to have that intuitive, we're not all Hondas. Like it's gonna feel different for some people, right? Work on your form, and the better you get at, like even for yourself, like the better you get at your self-awareness and your muscle-mind connection, is basically like just knowing how it feels when you're in the moment. The better you get at that, the more your technique gets, perfected in a sense, but there's still that really human party that's like, I'm a rip and grip, but I can still rip and grip and understand how to control that rip. Where most people are, when they're ripping and ripping, they're just ripping and gripping, and there's no control, right? So it's like, I'm ripping, but I can't feel my lats. It's like, well, because you probably can't activate your lats, and most people can't activate your lats. If you can't activate your lats, if you can't do a front lat, like relax, and then there's no way in heck you can pull with your lats. Right, and so that's where the bro and the sciencey stuff for me is. But I think it is a good, like having both, a good mix of both is what's gonna be a lot better than really just sitting there focused on a study. Because a lot of studies that are done, they're not done on seasoned, they're not even done. They're done in general pop mostly. They're not done on even the minority of the people that go to the gym, because that small minority of people that actually go to the gym, that actually use a membership. There's even small sample size of those who actually make progress.
That's what I think separates intermediates from the more advanced guys. It's knowing your body, it's knowing how you move, it's knowing your weaknesses, it's knowing how you want to move, and then sometimes doing that, but sometimes not doing that if it's not what you actually need. And so that's the beauty of bodybuilding. Yeah.